All right. He'll be drinking water, folks. We just started on Blab. So here we go. Hey, everybody. It's Dr. Vibe. As always, I like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. If you want to touch base with me, best way to touch base with me on Twitter, which is in the box there at drvibeshow, or you can email me at dr.vibeshow.com. I'd like to thank people already jumping on via Periscope. Thank you so much. Much appreciated. You can only see me, but you can hear the conversation. So I really appreciate it, seeing one way of the conversation. And it's also on Blab and also my website. Well, I have another friend coming on to the show. Hey, thank you. Michael Moose now has shared it via all his Twitter followers. So there you go. Michael. It just happens. Organic. This is good stuff. So who do we have on the show today? Well, we have a young man named Alan Bishop. He's a consultant, writer, television producer, and adventurer. He's been lucky to travel the world designing and producing challenges, games, activities, and adventures for not only TV's biggest competition shows, but for the global Fortune 500 companies. Through his website, The 365 Degree Effect, which everyone needs to go check out, Alan works with individuals and corporations to help them uncover their better. He's a dedicated fitness enthusiast, as well as being a lifelong lover of the game of golf. He's 23 years into a lifetime of loving his wife and a proud dad of two young men, 23 and 20. You can follow him at The 365 Degree Effect. And I had the pleasure of meeting Alan verbally. He had been on my show, a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago. But he's found this Blab thing, and he's all over it, and I'm all over it. So he's here with us this evening. Well, welcome back, Alan. How you doing?
I'm great, Dr. Vibe. How are you, man? It's a pleasure to be here and to be kind of on my first guesting Blab. So I'm very excited about that.
We are happy to have that event on our platform. This is fantastic. Looking forward to it. We got a good bio about yourself, but let's take it back. Give some of the particulars where you were born, growing up, etc. Yeah. Share with our audience.
For sure. And I got to say, that was quite the bio. I gave you the bio from the Good Men Project, so it was a mouthful there. You could have just said a master of all trades, or jack of all trades and a master of none. That would have been enough.
Well, I would have went short. I could have went just a really good guy.
Well, I'll take it. So thanks. So the background, yeah.
No problem.
You're on the East Coast. I'm on the West. Well, you're kind of on what we call the East Coast out here west. I'm on the lovely little island of Vancouver, and I live in Victoria. Kind of grew up here and have been very lucky to move back to Victoria just recently, after being further up on the island for the last 23 years while I was raising my two boys with my wife. And now we've relocated to Victoria, and it's kind of nice to be the empty nest now. And while that opens up a lot of different things around being a parent, it also opens up a lot of things for me professionally and my wife to be able to kind of hit this next phase of our life. So it's a challenge, and it's kind of apropos that we're talking about challenges today. But yeah, it's been a really great ride. It's been a fun thing to sort of take the path that I've had, and I'm looking forward to speaking with you a bit about that today. And that theme of how to challenge yourself for a better life. It really is kind of the way that I've been able to craft my life in a very unexplained and unplanned way. So I'm very excited about that.
Good stuff. I also want to welcome on Periscope Moto JT. Thank you so much also for sharing it with all your Twitter followers. Appreciated and not taken for granted. So let's get a little bit more background on you. What was life growing up on Vancouver Island, on the left coast, as we like to say?
Well, I guess I'm going to I think what I'll do is try to keep it in that theme of challenge, right? Because it really is where I started. I grew up here on the island, and came from a very interesting childhood where at 15, I kind of went out on my own and left home and traveled across kind of North America for 3 years. And I left home because I came from there was an alcoholic member of my family. My dad was an alcoholic, and my mom, I was bouncing back and forth with them from probably 10 to 15. And it just got to a point where, again, these are things where my evolution was one of really not knowing how it was going to turn out until my early 20s kind of thing. But I just made a decision that, I couldn't live in an environment, and the best thing for me to do was, I could go down one road or I could go down the other road. And I sort of chose to go down the road of looking after myself. And I left home and kind of hitchhiked to Calgary when I was 15 years old, and ended up kind of doing about a 3-year back and forth, but kind of all over North America for about 3 years, until finally one day I was back in Victoria and kind of hair down to the middle of my back. And I decided to walk into an Army recruiting office and said, I want to roll around in the mud and shoot guns. They said, sounds like infantry. I said, sounds great. And they said, can you fill out some forms? And it was kind of like that. And pretty soon I was on the other side of the country, and my hair was cut off, and I was in basic training. And that was at 19 years old.
Let me ask, and that's already a number of conversation pieces there. How did the time being away for those 3 years, how did that impact you then?
I think that,
because that's a young age, and leaving your family, was it a good split? Did they accept it? Were they not accepting of it? How was it, you being a young man taking that step of faith, so to speak?
It was an interesting thing. And I guess this is again why I think in my early 20s, I kind of had some epiphanies on who I was as a person, and then who I was as a professional and a teacher and all those things. But it really did come from this kind of 14 to 18-year-old stretch of my life. I found that my family, especially on my dad's side, so I had a stepmother and some stepbrothers and a stepfather and some stepbrothers on both ends of the family spectrum. And on my dad's side, there was really there wasn't care there. And that was one of the reasons I left. So there was no impact there. There was some loss from myself. But at that point, I'm 15 years old and I'm on my own, and I made some good decisions and some bad decisions. Thank goodness I made more good decisions than bad decisions. But there wasn't really an impact from my dad's side. On my mom's side, there was probably some questions of, what did she do wrong, or why isn't he conforming to my rules, or why doesn't he want to live with me? But she was busy taking care of herself, and it really wasn't about me at that point. So although I think there was some concern and impact on my mom, for me, there wasn't really a connection to family. And, as of today, I don't really have any connection with my father. Not from lack of trying. And that can be a whole other conversation that I think really would be of some value to some men in my situation, or women who have gone through something like I've gone through. But with my mom, we've actually just started to try to gain a relationship back over this probably the last 4 months. So which has been kind of exciting.
Nice. So we've gone through that period of your life. What was your next step after? Actually, what did serving in the military teach you? And also, what was your next step after that?
Yeah, the military was a wake-up call. I mean, I had been as a free spirit and as independent as you could possibly get, in that almost like 11 to 19-year-old age. And when you go from being 100 miles an hour down one road where, you're responsible for you're not really responsible for anybody else, or having to really worry about, I was always worried about the impact I had on people, but I was never really front and center about that impact. And then when I hit the Army, 3 days into it, I'm sitting in the shower and I realized that I'm in the Army. I got no excuse. Like I can't get out of this situation. And I get into a conflict with never forget this. I get into a conflict with a guy. His name was Jeff Anger. If you can believe that, his last name was Anger. And we're sitting in the shower. It's guys at the end of the day. We've been going nonstop all day long, and we were cleaning. I forget what we were cleaning, but everybody had to clean different things, and it just was easier to clean the stuff. And I think we were cleaning our mucklucks, our winter boots, and it was easier to clean them in the shower because you could kind of double task because we didn't really have a lot of time. And he just kept, messing stuff up and doing stuff. And I wanted to get into a fight with this guy. So I actually stopped myself and said, all right, if I get into a fight, that's kind of my old way of working. I can't do that. It's not going to serve me to do this. So I walked out, towel on, and I punched a hole in one of the pillars in the middle of the barracks. And this was at, I think, about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. And as soon as I punched it, my hand went straight through it. And I went, oh my God, I'm out of the Army. I've just, here I am ready to take on this new challenge. I'm very excited about this challenge and committed to it. And all of a sudden I think I'm done. So I go up, I pick up I go into they had like a duty station, and I go in and I pick up the phone and I call my senior warrant officer who was in charge of us at that point. And I said, Master Corporal, it's Private Bishop, and I just want to let you know I punched a hole in the barracks. And I'd woken him up. It's 3 o'clock in the morning, and I didn't realize it at this point. You don't really want to wake up your commanding officer. And he literally said, "Is anyone hurt?" And I said, "No." He goes, "Are you hurt?" And I go, "No." He goes, "Don't ever effing call me at this time of night again. I'll see you in the morning." And that was it. And I mean, he had my number, but he also realized that and it was a chance. I got a chance, I guess is the best way to put it. He knew that I was very concerned that my future might have been in jeopardy. He knew that I also didn't get into a fight, and I chose to do something other than confront another human being in that situation. And I think there was some respect that he saw. He goes, well, maybe there's a bit of promise in this kid. And then from that moment on, I really started I kind of understood how to play the game. And I did really well. I really enjoyed the military. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, we were never utilized. I ended up becoming a paratrooper, and when there was certain things happening, they would rather send us to pick up garbage by the Trans-Canada Highway rather than actually go in and do something. And that was for the Oka crisis, and then also for the first Gulf War. It wasn't until they sent my regiment to Somalia in 1992 where the real challenges happened with the regiment. And I'd gotten out right before Somalia because I knew there was going to be some bad things. I felt there was going to be some bad things going on. And I also I wanted to do something different with my life. I had taken every training that I could, every course, and I was as gung-ho as you got and as hardcore as you got, but it just wasn't, there was no purpose behind what we're doing. And that, again, was part of this evolution for me around living a purposeful life. And that was a very, very important transition for me, but it was also really important to realize that I made another choice. I made another choice, and I chose to challenge myself in a different way. And I got out of the Army, and I moved back to Vancouver Island and went back to school. I'd never graduated, so I decided now was a chance to go back into school.
And we're going to get in the next few months, we're going to get into the whole core message or core topic tonight about challenge yourself for a better life. But it seems that at a very young age, challenge became part of your core. Am I correct in assuming that?
I would say that challenge, yes, became part of my core, and it was all. It's a bit deeper than that, but really, what became part of my core was this experiential life. It was understanding that I truly am an experiential learner, and that in order for me to understand stuff, in order for me to process stuff, in order for me to teach people and teach myself, it's really a taste, touch, feel, do mentality. I gotta pick something up and move it. I've got to get down in the mud. I've got to invest myself in a relationship. I've got to have that experience. And I was very, very lucky, probably when I was 24 years old, to get involved in an organization called the Association for Experiential Education. And in the AEE, I just kind of fell into this group of people who every single thing they did, whether they were a clinical psychologist, whether they were the military, whether they were teachers, whether they were outdoor guides, like I went back into my outdoor guiding business at this point. They all used experiences as a way of promoting change or learning with the groups that they would work with. And that kind of rolled up that from 11 to 18 or 11 to 23 years of my life, where I went, wow, okay, I'm an experiential learner. It all makes sense. And now I can start this next path. And that next path was really around helping use challenge and experiences as a way of helping others.
Well, I'm going to make a decision here. We can talk more about your journey and all that, but let's get right into the whole area of challenge. And before we came on live on our conversation tonight, because we are going to have Alan back, because there's about 3 different things I want him to share about in individual blabs. So Alan, don't think you're going to just be able to desert me after this one. I'm going to be on you.
And you're
Just
gonna be coming
realized
and
that.
joining me for some conversation.
My pleasure, my honor. We talked or just talked about a little bit before we came on live. It's a little bit into February. Everyone had those New Year's resolutions, and I heard a crazy statistic that like maybe 50 to 60% of the resolutions, which are actually challenges people put on themselves, are gone by the end of January. So having Alan on this conversation is absolutely wonderful. So before we get into that, when did you start taking challenge up to another level, not only in your own life, but in helping others?
I think that was probably like when I was 24, 25. I had been involved in the wilderness and been involved in guiding and outdoors very early on in life. Part of that pilgrimage across the country, I took different. I worked every job imaginable, but a lot of the ones that I would default to were working for a camp or working as a guiding assistant or anything to do with the outdoors. I kind of was part of. So when I really first started developing challenges for people with some real intent, and I think it ties into our talking about those New Year's, intent and design when you're thinking of challenge are incredibly important. And when I was 24, 25, I started designing games and challenges and guiding moments actually that had specific intent in them. And, I'd get just a couple examples would be people who, I used to guide the West Coast Trail. Here's a perfect example. And on the West Coast Trail, you would usually do it in anywhere between 3 and 7 days. That was kind of the time that groups would do it based upon their schedules and their physical abilities. But for me, I'd love the 6-day trip because I would go in a couple of days early and I would plant caches along the way, knowing that I was going to stop at different camps. And part of why I did that was, one, I wanted to create some exciting moments for the people that I guided and for the clients that were part of it. But also I wanted to do something different that would allow the experience to matter each day. So when you're hiking, a lot of people's feet get destroyed. And if you've never really hiked before or done a long time back trip, you're carrying something heavy, your feet are rubbing all the time. And 90% of the people suffer some pretty nasty foot injuries, whether they're blisters or cracked toes, whatever. But I always would find it really interesting to push people. And I'd say, you never know what's going to be around the next corner. 5 more steps, 5 more minutes, all these different goals. But I'd get them to the end of the day, and I would have challenged them to, tell me what they're feeling. Tell me how hard things are. Tell me how bad your feet hurt. But then we'd get to one of these spots that I had the cache. And instead of letting them just stop and dive down and relax, I'd give them a map. And I'd do an X marks the spot. And I'd say, well, before we get all set up, you got to go dig the latrine because you need a proper toilet, and you can't. There's not outhouses everywhere, so you've got to dig a proper toilet. And I would give them the map, and they'd be mad because all of a sudden it'd be like, why am I going to have to dig a latrine? That's your job. But they'd go off and do it. I'd convince them, and they'd go down and they'd find the spot. They'd dig, crack, crack, crack. They'd hit it. There would be a crate in there. They'd pull it out, and I'd have a bottle of wine. I'd have fresh cheese. I would have, I'd have fresh vegetables, and the joy on their face. But it was that making that experience matter. It was allowing that challenge, the intent of why I pushed them so hard that day, the intent of why I knew they were going to, if they'd worked for it, it would feel that much better. And that was really the development of kind of where I started really being interested in what does it mean to design a challenge for some specific purpose that's going to provide an opportunity for growth, change, or learning. And, I've been doing that since I was 21 years old.
In your experiences dealing with people when it comes to this whole area of challenge, are there common reasons why people don't want to be challenged?
Yeah, I think there's 2 ways to look at that. I think, and I talk about this in the book that I'm writing. And the biggest thing is there's 2 sort of mindsets that I see. One is that I think a lot of people, there's certain people that have a success mindset, and then there's certain people that have a failure mindset. And when it comes to challenges, and this is really relevant when you look at the whole New Year's resolution thing, this failure mindset that people adopt can become so debilitating to people when they're trying to make that change, or they're trying to honor a commitment, or they're trying to resolve something that's going on within themselves. They've bought into this failure mindset. And the way I look at it is, let's just take a very common resolution. Let's just say losing weight. There's three big ones every year. It's health, finances, and relationships. Every single, probably 80% of all resolutions fall into one of those three spots. And health obviously falls into the losing weight one. So when someone says, I want to lose weight, chances are that they've had that challenge before. They've been faced with it. It's been part of their radar. So immediately when you say, I'm going to set a goal of losing 10 pounds in the first 3 months of 2016, immediately two things happen. You either go to the success mindset or you go to the failure mindset. If you go to the failure mindset, immediately every single past failure that you have had with losing 10 pounds, or hearing about your neighbor losing 10 pounds, or your dad trying to fight losing 10 pounds, or your cat trying to lose 10 pounds, or the media telling people it's hard to lose 10 pounds, every single bit of that information kicks into your failure mindset, and you've immediately set yourselves up for a harder challenge. Whereas then you have some people that kind of default into that success mindset, and they think, all right, I'm going to lose 10 pounds. What is the easiest possible step I can make every day to help me succeed at that? And if they succeed on day one, it helps them succeed on day two. If they succeed on day two, it helps them succeed on day three. And this snowball effect, this success mindset starts to take over. And yeah, you still have your challenges, but that success frame works a lot better than the failure frame. And I think people, when they start off the year, they try to bite off so much and they forget about, let's just build some foundation of success, because you're in it for the long haul. If you're going to really change, or you're going to really accept a challenge for yourself, you can't think short term. You got to think, how can I ultimately be successful? And where I find a lot of people really have serious challenges is they spend way too much time biting off something bigger than they can chew. And as soon as it gets difficult, that's when it's gone. They really start to falter. And I see it again, that failure mindset will creep in, and I mean, it just weighs too heavy. You can't possibly control it when you're putting everybody's stuff in addition to your own on your own shoulders.
Excellent stuff. Just want to shout out to a number of people who have joined into the room. Got Michael C. Moose Now. Thank you so much for sharing the link out with all your followers. Thank you also to @KillaKev41. Also Ahmed Hazel. Also Hugh Benjamin, and also Daniel Booth. And thanks everyone to jump in. If you have any questions or any comments about the whole area of challenge, Alan is here. Love to have you come in and enjoy the conversation. Or if you want to put comments in the side, well, Hugh Benjamin is jumping in. Here we go.
Hey, how's it going? I'm doing good.
Hugh, how you doing? I am blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. That is me.
Remind me of a friend of mine. He says the same thing all the time. So,
well, I hope as long as it's a good friend, I'm in good space.
He's blessed and highly favored. So.
Fantastic.
There you go. Thanks for taking the time to stop by. Do you have any comments about the whole area of challenge?
I think, I actually have some experience. I heard you talking about losing weight or goals that people set being really big. And, I read a lot of books on accomplishing things. I have a digital marketing agency where we do social media and we do internet marketing and all that great stuff for people that are trying to get found on Google. And it always comes back to the same thing, is having a plan and focusing on your vision of where you're going. And I think for even for entrepreneurs, I was just talking to a doctor a day ago, and she was like, she wants to change her lifestyle and not be so driven with work, but create like a new way to make income. And it's almost like people have to reinvent themselves when it comes to the internet or trying to move to a different place. And a lot of it has to do with breaking patterns that people normally have. So if you want to get something different, you obviously have to do something different. But if you don't know what that different stuff is, then you're kind of stuck in that old pattern that got you where you are. And so even me personally, with my own experience, when I was in high school, I played like 5 sports. I was in the Marines. You know, I was a varsity person in like 3 different sports, and I went out dancing all the time. And I was in, you know, you're 18, 19, 20, you have nothing to worry about, right? Like you have all this time, no responsibility, no stress.
Sure.
And I went to an Anthony Robbins seminar, Unleash the Power, and you know, I always believe in having the right state of mind and being focused on what you want. However, one of the things that really clicked to me was like Anthony Robbins, if you've ever seen his events, he's just like full of energy. He's like full on all the time, like everything, right? And I was looking at him and I'm like, is this guy crazy? And I'm like, no, he's not crazy. He's alive, right? So
sure.
He talked about state, but he talked about not only your thinking, but he talked about like what you put in your body affects your state, and what you put in your mind affects your state, and the things that you focus on affects your emotional state. And before I had tried working out, and every time I would go to the gym, I would look at all the people around me, and I would look in the mirror, and I would say to myself, oh my gosh, I would look at this gap between where I was and where I needed to get to, and I would be exhausted just thinking about how far away I was from where I was. And I would always bounce back and forth. I mean, you could talk to my wife, she'll agree with you that I was like a roller coaster, just up and down, up and down. And a lot of that has to do with what you focus on. So when I went to the Anthony Robbins event, I said, you know, I've got to make this shift because I've got to focus on what I want and not look at the gap. And so I got a trainer and I started doing some visualization exercises. And what I did was I was at the beach and I focused on my ideal self and where I wanted to be, what I wanted to wear, what kind of, you know, would I be wearing jewelry? What kind of clothes would I have on? What kind of house would I live in? And I started daydreaming about that and visualizing like where I was going. And then I thought about like, if I was in that place, how would I feel? Would I be turned on? Would people be attracted to talk to me? Would I have lots of energy? You know, and I started thinking about that too. And what I was able to do was I was able to connect to where I was going as opposed to where I was. And every time I went to the gym, I didn't focus on the process of like, oh, it's going to be so hard for me to go to the gym and it's going to be so much work. I thought about how I was going to feel at the end of that when I accomplished my goals. And I even visualized like kind of like what I would look like and, you know, how I would feel. And I would just keep connecting with that. And so for a lot of people, it's really hard for them to put themselves in that place because they're so focused on where they are. And they look at this huge gap between like here and here, and their focus is on the gap.
And I really think that that's what I was talking about in the whole success mindset versus failure mindset. I think it's people get in there and they bite off more than they can chew. And I believe that especially if it's something you're trying to do that you've never done before, people that have tried weight loss, people that have tried exercise, people that have tried finances, living a better relationship, those are all things that we're comfortable with. If you're trying something new, like learning a new language or trying to play a musical instrument, which is so very foreign, again, part of it is really sitting down when you're planning this stuff, and I call it crafting your goals, because it is a craft, and it's really important that you craft them in a way that's going to start you on the path of success. Part of it is you got to keep it simple. I call it the SAM principle. You got to keep it simple, you got to keep it actionable, and you got to keep it measurable. And it's really trying to figure out what those 3 things, how does SAM work for you, and finding a way to do that, which is going to allow you to succeed. You can't look at in the next, you know, my thing's 365. I do goals for 365 days, and I honor 4 commitments for the course of a year. It's a long time, but I also break it up into really achievable small daily actions that help me get where I want to go. And I think what you're saying is absolutely true. If you're just going to focus on, you know, being whatever your goal was in the gym when you first start out, that's a really big thing to try to bite off, rather than just saying, I'm going to get to the gym today. That's a success. Or I'm going to,
Right.
you know what, I can't get to the gym today. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to honor my goal by doing one push-up with
Right.
absolute precision, with clarity, with my mind starting off saying, all right, I need to get my fitness. I've committed that I'm going to work out X amount of days. I'm too busy. I'm too stressed. I haven't eaten right. But you know what? I got to do an exercise today. So I'm going to do one perfect push-up. If you do that push-up and you've done it with the intent and the clarity that you said you were going to honor your goals for whatever your time limit is, you've done it. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to stress over the fact you didn't get to the gym. You don't have to stress over the fact that it was, cardio day or legs day or whatever your plan is. You've honored it. And that's part of learning how to be successful every day. And I think that's what gets missed a lot when people either coach you in goals or try to get you on a New Year's resolution program. Especially it's wrong with any of people that are selling you that New Year's program. They just want you to buy their stuff. And that's why, I talk about uncover your better. Everyone's going to sell you a widget, and that widget might work for you or it might not work for you, but you got to try it. You got to figure out if it works and find out if that's part of what you're going to use from now on for success. And I think that's really, really important.
I think people, like one of the, I had a trainer, so it's always important to have somebody that holds you accountable for what it is that you're trying to do, because sometimes we can be our own worst enemies. And like going to that trainer and go, hey, here's my goal, and this is kind of what I want to look like, and like I have a goal, I kind of want to lose 10 or 15 pounds, and then I think one of the really important things, and maybe a lot of people don't have the skill set to do this, but I've started kind of hardwiring my mind to like my goals in a way that I connect with them on an emotional level. I think when you see that, like, hey, I love great food. I remember I used to see like an almond croissant, and I love almonds. I drink almond milk. I have all this stuff, and I'd be like, "Oh, that looks so good." But then me thinking in my head, if I eat that almond croissant, I'm not going to be that tapped in, turned on person that I want to be. I'm going to be further from that goal. And thinking about like you really need something that turns you on and lights you up. And if you don't have something that turns you on and lights you up, then you're just saying you want something that you really don't want. And I think that's really important.
At the end of the day, emotional I think it's really important to look at too. You've got goals, you've got challenge, then you've got commitment, then you've got discipline, then you've got action. There's a lot of things that make up what we're talking about, and each one of them is no more important than the other. But I think the number one thing for me when we talk about challenge, and we kind of strayed off challenge a little bit into more of a goal, but I think the number one thing is you just have to be able to achieve on a daily basis towards the goal you want to make. And if it's too big, that's going to become really, really hard because your commitment wavers, your discipline wavers, that almond croissant that you pass by every day as you're walking to your office or to the bus or wherever you're going, it gets more and more tempting. And that's not so much about your goal, that's about your commitment or your discipline. And each one of those things is something you have to hone. And, Dr. Bob, we could talk about commitment and discipline for another hour or two. It's just, I love both of those things. Exactly. And I think that, Hugh, what you're saying is absolutely right.
I just want to step in.
One more thing.
Go ahead.
And I'll let you, one of the things too, I see a lot of people that work really hard, and I'm a big believer in the law of attraction and feeling good while you're doing stuff, like being in a certain zone. I think there's a lot of people out there that work really hard and they ignore the whole feeling and kind of an emotional thing. And you can push through stuff, but if you're just working hard but you're not getting results, then I think you need to look at like, how are you coming at it from a different perspective? Like going and trying to accomplish some of those things when you feel good, or like turning on some great music that makes you get into state, whether that be, hey, Michael Jackson or, whatever it may be. I was watching a documentary the other night on Michael Jackson and how, driven he was with his work ethic and his passion. And like watching stuff like that gets you lit up and motivated is something that's very beneficial, as opposed to pushing through something and feeling horrible, Yeah,
I think, part of that too, to tie that back into challenge, Dr. Vibe, if I can just quickly, is I'm an absolute
Absolutely.
firm believer in challenge. So when you talk to you about, you're doing great. So yeah, training's easy today. And wow, that training was fantastic. I've been up for the last week, but I'm 46 years old. I'll be 47 this year. And, my wife's 51. We're at a point in our lives where there's a lot of ebb and flow in terms of cycles. And I think
Right.
women's cycles and men's cycles are incredibly different, but I believe we all have our cycles, and there's low ones that I get into. And I find that it's really, really exciting or interesting to figure out how I need to challenge myself when my cycle's low, or when my energy's low, or when, I've been traveling and yeah, I've been trying to eat. I've been taking my food with me on the airplane. I've been trying to get as many calories in to keep myself at the level I need, but it sucks. And I'm now in Sydney airport and I've got to do a workout because I'm going to be on another plane for 12 hours. All right, what do I do? And that challenge, that ability to shift your mindset and go, all right, I got a goal I got to meet. My conditions are adverse. I got to get at it. How am I going to succeed in this place where, I got to embrace the suck. That's what we used to call it, right? You embrace the suck, and you got to find a way, right? And that is a really great tool to have as part of your toolkit when you're thinking about taking on some goals or some challenges. Is how am I going to work when the conditions are adverse?
Yeah.
Sorry, Dr. Vibe, head up.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks.
No problem.
Sure.
Here, you got anything
No,
else?
that's it. I appreciate you guys having me on. I
no
figured
problem.
I'd just jump in and share my experience.
Yeah,
and you can do anything you set your mind to. So I lost, probably 5 different belt sizes, and in the last 2 years, probably like 30 some pounds, and completely changed how I look. So it's completely possible. You just got to connect to something that turns you on and lights you up. So
there you go.
Have a great one, guys.
Good stuff.
All right, take care.
Thanks for making the program better. Much appreciated.
Sure.
Good stuff. Excellent. This is good. Let me ask, Alan, do people ever get challenged out?
Yeah, it's interesting. That's an interesting one. It depends on how you look at that, right? I think that's part of that cycle. I think there's times when you just can't take on anymore. And when part of being, that's sometimes the biggest challenge is, for me, that's a big challenge, is I'm not going to take anything on. I'm not going to say yes. I'm just going to relax. I'm going to challenge myself to just slow down. And, maybe I don't look at it as a challenge, but it really is something that I have to take into account. We can push ourselves so freaking hard, so far and for so long that, for me, my body will ultimately shut me down. I'm at the point in my life where if I keep pushing, sometimes I don't listen to the subtle cues that my body will say, and it'll say, all right, well, we'll tweak your hamstring. We'll see if you're going to listen now. And it'll force me to kind of set down. And that's when I kind of realize, all right, I've been maybe taking on too much of a challenge. I think that a lot of people, though, they're not afraid to challenge themselves. I think it's an awareness question of where are you in terms of how much challenge is going on in your life, how big are the challenges going on in your life, and then questioning, are they benefiting you, or are they actually hurting you? And that's a good question to ask yourself.
Excellent. You have two
boys,
sons,
23
correct?
23 and 20. Yeah.
Now, yeah. So here's a pop conversation on this. How are they handling challenges different than when you were there?
They got a heck of a lot more support.
Absolutely.
Which I love, right? That's just been a really great gift for me to be able to try to be the best dad I can for them and create that stability within a family. But it's interesting. At 23, my oldest son, we had just taken them. We hadn't gone snowboarding as a family for probably about 3 years. And my oldest boy, my wife and I went off and we snowshoed for the day while the boys hung out as brothers on the mountain for the first time in a lot of years. And at the end of the day, we all met and we're driving back down the mountain and just reveling in the wonderful day we had. And I said, my son's oldest name is Casey. And I go, Casey, how was it? He goes, well, it's certainly, now that I'm getting older, it hurts a lot more when I fall. And I just went, wow, here he is. He's 23. He's at that age as a man where he's starting to really have to make some decisions about keeping his body healthy. 23 to 26 is, for a man, when our bodies stop generating all of our testosterone, or start reducing the amount of testosterone that we're making. It starts reducing our ability to heal itself. And it was very interesting for me to hear him say that, because I've been a proponent with the boys of saying, look, you got to take care of your bodies. You don't want to be as sore as I am. Because I played hard for 35 years in terms of the outdoors and athletics and fitness. And I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have anyone early on helping me out with that. So I think they're challenging themselves just as much as I did in different ways. But I think they're also recognized. They grew up as kids whose dad designed challenges. So I think they've got a really good awareness of where to push that edge in terms of comfort, where to push that edge in relation to, I really do want to have a new experience. I really do want to get outside my comfort zone. But I think they've got a pretty good framework that they see the challenges in. And I'm really glad that they have that, because I think it's a benefit to them and to their peer group too.
Good stuff. Just want to shout out some people here at Wake Up Better. He's talk about challenges. He's an overcomer and challenge king. At Smash TV Radio, thank you for stopping by. Also at LA Filmer, thank you so much for stopping by. Also at Fish. There you go. You mentioned something about men and challenges. I want to delve into this for a few moments. That whole aspect of challenges in a man's life. You've had quite the journey as a man. How do you feel men are handling challenges at this time in 2016 now compared to a few years ago? Are they better equipped? Are they handling them better?
It's a really interesting question. I think that we're changing, right? We're seeing this conversation about men changing quite a bit. We're seeing roles and gender roles, and we're seeing jobs and security and caregivers and all these things changing. So it's a really interesting time to look at what men are doing to handle challenges. I think there's more challenges for men right now than there ever has been, just because those roles are so wide open. It used to be, 20 years ago, it was a fairly straight line. There was some tangents that happened in the role of a man, but you were to get a job, provide, raise your family, and coach baseball or football, or be there in those moments. And that wasn't unheard of to have that expectation. And I think now there's a lot more questions, and there should be. I think it's wonderful that women and men are exchanging different roles. And personally, I fall back to that it's a real honor to be a man, and I think we've got to challenge ourselves to be better men. I cringe that the world of chivalry is dying on a lot of, I see people more interested in their phone than holding a door open for another person, whether it's a man or a woman. I see that lack of compassion or care with another human being in a real honest, authentic conversation is challenged. And I think that's something that men need to look at. We need to be those role models where, if you see something going on that you need to speak up for, there's a challenge there. There's an expectation for me with my boys that they speak up, they question it. So those are the challenges that I'm finding really interesting with men right now, and our roles as men that currently they need to be explored more. They really need to be explored more, and conversations like this. Obviously, I think the conversation that the Good Men Project is having is a great place for that. I think we're in an interesting time, and I think that we're going to be challenged more in terms of roles and gender and what a man's supposed to be. But I'm pretty comfortable with the challenges I'm going to take on, and that's trying to live a little bit more authentically and not be afraid to speak my mind and speak my truth, which I never really have been, but modeling that a little bit more, I think.
Just to delve a little bit more in regards to the men and challenge issue, do you feel men are better equipped to handle the diverse challenges today compared to a number of years ago?
I think that men have more options to handle the challenges. I don't necessarily know if they're better prepared, because especially younger men. I think there's more gray area for younger men. I think there's been a lot of younger men who have grown up in single family households, who have grown up in places where they might not have had great mentoring. I think there's more of those men that are seeking help necessarily than 30, 40 years ago, 20, 30 years ago, when the roles were a lot more defined. So although I think there's some more skills out there for men and there's more opportunity for discussion, I don't necessarily know if there's as much support for that discussion. And I think things like social media can be great, but I think unless we have some of those real mentoring relationships via social media or via in person, men that are evolving into manhood, I believe, are not going to be quite as prepared, because there isn't as straight of a line in what you're expected to be as a man. And that's going to create more challenges, which is good, but I just don't necessarily know if the support is there for young men to transition into their manhood, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. In the people you come into communication with and deal with when it comes to challenge, are there common challenges that they're expressing with you at this time in history?
Yeah, the number, again, I really think that they always fall into three. It's the health, it's the relationships, and it's the finances. And, that health bucket to me is becoming much bigger. When people talk to me about a challenge, or, I do this thing called I Challenge You, which is I design a 30-day custom challenge or custom commitment. So I design one commitment that people honor for 30 days. And the purpose of that is to, get them into that success mindset. I think that why that challenge is, kind of lost my train of thought. I was talking, what was the question?
I just talking about common challenges that people approach you with. And you
back to the health bucket. So that health bucket is getting more people I think are just burning out, and people are saying, how do I do more when I'm being expected to do X, Y, and Z? I only have the energy for X and Y. I just can't do Z. And so more people are coming to me with this health bucket, whether that's, they want to get fitter, they want to eat better, they want to have a better overall health. Like, people are tired, and that's, I hear that a lot, right? I don't have the energy, I don't have the strength, I don't know how to keep to my diet. And that's what a lot of people are coming to me for, especially in this last couple months. And I think that's part and parcel with the New Year's resolutions. But I've been seeing that trend for the last couple of years. And I just want people to realize you're only going to get healthy, whatever health means to you, whether that's weight or that's fitness, or that's diet or that's mental health. The only way you're going to get healthy is if you really start to analyze and figure out what small steps can you take right off the bat. What is one thing you can do that is going to challenge you to meet that goal? If it's to lose 10 pounds, what is one infinitely small thing that you can take off your list and succeed at today? Because if you succeed at it, it's going to give you a ray of hope. And that ray of hope is sometimes all you need to make massive, massive change, or to take another challenge head on. But unless you figure out, and unless you find something within yourself, you might have not been able to lose 10 pounds for 20 years. It might be haunting you inside. But if you can figure out one way to get one daily small bit of success with intent towards that challenge or that goal, it's going to open up a world of possibilities for you.
It's good stuff. I don't know. Anything else you want to share with us at this time? Because you are coming back. Is there anything that you wanted to share with our audience that you didn't get a chance? Because certainly we want to make sure you get everything you wanted to share on this conversation piece.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing around challenge, I'll just wrap it up with one thing around challenge. It really doesn't matter how big it is. Like, it really doesn't matter how we say that we want to be challenged. It doesn't matter what area you want to be challenged in. What matters is you've got to challenge yourself more. If it's, it's very, very easy to get through your day, to get home, to grab that drink, to sit on the couch. It's very easy to, instead of, doing your day's work, go past the gym on your way home because you're too tired. It's very easy to not look at your loved one with a sense of compassion or a sense of joy when you get home because you got so much other stuff on your face or on your plate. If you're going to start challenging yourself, challenge yourself to do things that are going to make your life better. It's just essential that we do it, because when we overcome these challenges, however big or how small, it gives us hope. And we all look for hope in different ways. There's lots of ways we fill ourselves with hope, but that sense of purpose, that sense of passion, that sense of commitment that we gain from just succeeding, for taking a challenge, no matter how big or how small, but taking it on and overcoming it and getting past it, that just is going to make you have a better life. It will. There's no way it's going to fail. If you take on a challenge, you meet it head on, you succeed, you're going to improve and improve in whatever way you want to. So take more challenges. Don't be afraid, but make them small. Bite off a little chunk.
I think, and I hope you agree with this, that even when you take on a challenge, there's going to be challenges along the way in overcoming that challenge.
Absolutely. And again, that comes down to how you craft it, right? That's the really important thing. It's, you've got to spend some work. We're going to get challenged every day. There's going to be things that come up that force us to go one direction or the other. And, we might not always handle those challenges well, but when we're trying to change, when we're trying to have a better life, when we're doing something that is going to try to allow us to get from an A to a B, we really have to be careful about how we craft that, because you don't want to continually fail, right? It's great to fail every once in a while, and it's great to fail forward, but you've got to find a way to make failures successes. And if your challenges are always too big, you're going to just create that. You're going to throw all that stuff into a backpack, and it's going to be too heavy to carry on.
Good stuff. Well, Alan, it's good to have you back, man. Been a while, and I'm very happy that you had some time to share with us.
I'm excited. Thanks so much for allowing me to be here and share with people. I hope people have enjoyed it, and hope people will come back and we can have more conversations and get some questions out there and take some time to help some other people.
We will. Before we shut down the recording, how can people come in contact with you if they want to find more? You can verbally say it. You can also type it in the comments section. I'll type something up there,
but you can get me on Twitter at the 365 Effect. My website is the365effect.com. And if anyone wants to have a custom design challenge, I'll tell you what I'll do. You go on, if you go on there right now, I'm going to set up a discount, Dr. Vibe. I'll go in and do that after this. So if people are interested, wait an hour or so, and I'll send you a code. I don't know how we get it back onto I'll put it, how am I going to do this? I'll tell you what, I'll send it out on Twitter.
What?
I'll send it out on Twitter. I'll send it out on Twitter within the hour, a code where you can get, I'll say 50% off. I'll do half price off an I Challenge You program.
Wow.
I'll do it. And basically all it is you answer 10 questions. I'll custom design a challenge for you, which is a 30-day commitment that if you follow it, I guarantee is going to set you on that path of success to take on anything. So I'll do that within the next hour. I'll send out the link. But yeah, if you're interested in the I Challenge You program, it's pretty cool. It's changing people's lives.
Excellent. Well, it is a Dr. Vibe here, and another great conversation. And just for people, Alan and I first came on my show, actually on the Goodman Project,
a couple of years ago.
A show we do for couple of years ago, and he was on Blab the other day, and I saw him on a few of us. Hey, Alan, get back, get on here. So he is back on. This will not be the first conversation that we have him on, but we're very blessed and highly favored to have him on. Like to say to everyone who stopped by, much appreciated. And I see that there are only guys left, so which is a good thing. Alan's just put up his website address if you want to check out more about what he does, which is all good. Again, like to thank some people, Michael Muznow dropping by, Moto JT, thank you as always. Also to Abdul, thank you so much. Van Gogh, thank you so much. Van Slinger, good man, and Ahmed Hazel, thank you so much for stopping by. I can say if you want to touch base with me, the Twitter handle is there. I'll also put my show address is there. And have a great, we don't do talks here, we do conversations, but I'll take the talk compliment. That's all right. Next show coming up for Dr. Vibe tomorrow night. It's our weekly manhood show at 8:30 Eastern time on Blab. And tomorrow night's conversation, men, can we stop pretending? Can we stop pretending? Tomorrow night, Dr. Vibe, Sean Blab, 8:30 Eastern Time, 5:30 Pacific, and my co-host will be, as always, Glenn Barker from the Mankind Project in Chicago, and also Dr. Marvin Thompson from the Lighthouse Education Foundation in New Orleans, Louisiana. Plus, we have a big announcement. I think we're going to do it tomorrow night. I'm not sure. Either tomorrow night or then better do it tomorrow night, because there's a big event coming up that all three of us are going to be doing, and it's all for manhood. It's a big manhood event we're going to be doing, and all of you will be able to access it if you're available during the time we're doing it. So as always, I like to say you're blessed and highly favored. You're a magnet for miracles, and you're a solution for someone's problem. God bless. Peace be well. Keep the faith, and bye-bye.